That's why I'm sure.
Call to order, Berkeley County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. First item, have Sarah do the roll call.
Corey Rodriguez,
Present.
John Bushman,
Present.
Jeffrey Smith, Dan Shergy,
Here.
Scott McAvoy.
Here. Okay, first item up, approval of tonight's agenda. Is there any questions? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item up, approval of meeting minutes from January 24th, 2024 meeting.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. The next item up, approval of minute meetings from the April 3rd, 2024 meeting. Is there any comments, questions on the minutes from that one?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. So the next item up is the, going back to the request for special exemption, the reserve at Tuscarora, file number 2402-053.
You guys just have to make a motion to untable it. It was tabled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I make the motion to untable it and so that it can be voted on tonight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so I'm just going to reread the staff report. It's not on. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is a request for special exception. The project is reserved at Tuscarora, file 2402-053, tied to 2301-009. The developer is Panhandle Homes and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Arden District, tax map 2, parcel 7, and is located along the north side of Tuscarora Pike, approximately half a mile west of Interstate 81. The applicant is proposing a 13,000 square foot professional legal office on 5.80 acres and a 10.85 acre single family residential lot, both to be served by public water and sewer. The applicant's requesting a special exception in accordance with section 503.2 of the Tuscarora Community Zoning Ordinance to construct a professional legal office. Table 503.2 in the Tuscarora Community Zoning Ordinance permits the use of a professional office by the granting of a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Section 502.3 states all special exception applications are referred to the Planning Commission for site plan review and recommendation before the public hearing by the Board of Zoning Appeals. On March 18th, 2024, the Planning Commission voted to advance the project to the Board of Zoning Appeals with no objection to the use of a professional legal office in the Tuscarora Community Zoning area. The proposed use is consistent with other commercial uses in the Tuscarora Community Zoning area. Staff does not have any concerns and recommends approval of the special exception request to allow for the construction of a professional legal office within the Tuscarora Community Zoning area.
Thank you. Do we have somebody to represent the project?
Good evening. My name is Steve Sianovich. I'm a project manager with Fox and Associates. I was in attendance at the initial, when this meeting was first held 3 weeks ago, and then continued to this evening. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
The one, can I see the board? I don't, what, the green area right there by the law office, what is that? It's not on any of the other drawings, and this is the first I've seen that.
I think there's another board that's a blow up of that property.
And the only reason I'm asking is because I haven't seen that green before.
This is the area that we're
For storm management. Okay,
stormwater
cool,
management.
okay.
I should have used blue, but I didn't use blue.
That's okay, yeah. The only other question is based on what we had discussed in the previous meeting and so far. I know we had talked about possibly lowering the facade some down from the 31 feet. Have we entertained that, or is that something we can do without a whole lot of issue?
Quite honestly, I haven't had any discussions with the appellant
Okay.
on the ability to lower the facade. And quite frankly, I'm on the civil end of this, not necessarily the
The
architectural.
architectural, right.
I do know that that facade that was shared with you during the initial meeting, from what I understand, is depicted in another Bowles Rice, or that facade style, if you will, appears on another Bowles Rice building located someplace else in the state.
Okay. I think Alan wants to speak.
We don't have that design done completely, Scott, yet. So we will be taking that into consideration.
Okay.
Again, so we can bring that down. So again, we have not went that far until we knew what was going to happen here.
Correct.
We can get that addressed and bring that down maybe a couple feet. Lower it down maybe a couple feet. We could probably be able to do that.
Okay.
I had one question actually for our legal. So one of the requirements for granting the special exemption, it says that the entrance and exit drives shall be laid out to achieve maximum safety. My question is, without a traffic study, how am I supposed, I mean, it's me making an assumption that it's safe.
Well, on one hand, the way this the ordinance is written, some of the things they're not things that necessarily establish the design is.
Mhm.
So the way I interpret it is that those are things that have to end up being approved. Planning department and hearing department.
Yeah.
So it still has to go all the way through the planning process. The other project has to do. I've discussed before, two of these terms in the zone that are a little confusing. Getting to know what an actual final version parking system is something.
Yes.
It's not going to be a problem. So the way I would encourage you, suggest you look at it is planning and engineering fight over that. You'll have to comply with all of our standards. Anything. Basically, here's one of those areas where maybe Mr. Black can add certain requirements in there. You can add in a safe according department and by the plan. This approval to
But
If I can elaborate though, like Department of Highways has total control over where that entrance is placed based Like distance separation, anything that's required road-wise is by DOH, we have absolutely no say. We could say, you could say, hey, we would love to see you put a turn lane in, but at the end of the day, DOH has to approve that within their right-of-way, and we haven't seen them do that thus far.
There is some additional information I'd like to offer, if I may.
Sure.
We've been, for the last several years now, when we have any new project, one of the first things we do take a look at is the location of the proposed entrance. The Division of Highways has very clear criteria with regard to intersection sight distance. For example, if you're pulling out of the business and I'm coming westbound, given the posted speed of the road that I'm traveling on, obviously the higher speed, the greater the distance you need to be able to see me and not make a decision to pull out in front of me. So this project's no different. We physically staked the entrance location per the plan that's on the board, and sent that material to Division of Highways. And I understand Mr. Henry did meet with representatives of the Division of Highways for them to conduct a field review. Really to Doug's, or to Laura's point and Jeff's point, many times that field review isn't done until we get beyond the stage we're at now. But in this particular instance, we chose to reach out to DOH initially. We wouldn't want to present a location of a structure and the accompanying entrance to you unless we had some assurance that that location could be approvable or approved by the Division of Highways. So we were really proactive, and prior to being before you the first time, we made those contacts with DOH and determined that the entrance location meets the sight distance criteria. We also did a trip generation, peak AM and peak PM hour, and shared that with the Division of Highways. And those trips in and out in the peak AM and peak PM hour are approximately 1/3 the amount of trips needed to result in a traffic study being needed. So we were far below the trip threshold that Division of Highways typically observes as a project that they would at least think about, not necessarily mandate, but think about or talk about the need for a traffic impact study. And again, since we're generating roughly 33%, I think it was 31% of the trips to warrant a study, they opted to determine a study wasn't required.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
If I could just follow up on that, and I agree with Laura. I mean, I understand that the developer or you as a project manager and Mr. Henry even can only go by what the standards are that's dictated by the Department of Highways. So if they feel a traffic study is not needed, and I understand that safety could become an issue of definition. You might think it's safety, I might not think it is. So unless they're going to do a traffic study and take it one step further, is it safe to go in and out of this establishment or not? They're not even going to consider that because of the traffic count. Where does that leave us?
I'm not sure.
It leaves Laura in the blind, it leaves us in the blind, because they have total control over determining that decision
Well, again,
with no information.
as I stated a moment ago, the site distance requirements are published in the Division of Highways criteria. Whether I measure them or you measure them, the measurements are the same.
Yeah, are you saying that, in that meaning, in layman's terms, from the intersection of Showers Lane and Tuscarora Road to the next entrance is of the suitable distance?
No, sir.
No.
I'm not saying that. What I spoke to, if this business was built and I was leaving that business at 5 o'clock in the evening or whatever,
Okay.
and there's traffic coming from the east, traffic coming from the west, what my eye would see, the distance my eye could see, an approaching vehicle exceeds
okay.
the minimums that Division of Highways determines, as determined are minimums, given the design speed and posted speed of the roadway that I'm turning
Okay.
onto.
Thank
So it
you.
has nothing to do with intersection separation.
Okay.
It's how far can I, or a driver's eye see?
In order to get out of the driveway safely or enter the driveway safely.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One other thing I wanted to add to that, you know, the state does their own traffic counts on all the roads in the county. It's not as if they're just making say you don't need to do that. They know what those traffic counts are on them roads. So they already have what's going up down that road all the time. So it's just not, they're using that as a background into making these decisions as well.
And I'll say traffic studies normally aren't for safety reasons. The sight distance and separation is a safety precaution. But traffic studies are more to make sure that the growth doesn't impede traffic flow. And DOH will tell you that all day long, that upgrades are mostly for traffic flow, not even.
I mean, the thing for me is, you know, at your hearing back on April 3rd, you know, a lot of the community, you know, that's a big concern is traffic safety. So, you know, the reason I asked the question is, I think, you know, if we do go forward with it, we should put some kind of wording in there. You know, I think safety is very important. And I mean, I think that, hey, if we're going over off of what the DOH says, then maybe we should write it in there that the DOH takes liability if the entrance isn't up to a standard.
It's been, if I could
Yep.
respond, many people think that, you know, for example, a traffic signal is the answer to all traffic problems. That's really not the case. And DOH would never permit a traffic signal at this entrance. It's in case somebody's going that direction. One thing I'd also add is that Division of Highways is very standoffish about building improvements. You know, if maybe the Planning Commission or this Board of Appeals would like to see some type of improvement, let's say a turn lane or something like that. Just because that recommendation is made by the Planning Commission, County Commissioners, Board of Zoning Appeals, the final decision lies with the Division of Highways. And I have had personal experiences where the Division of Highways wouldn't allow my clients to place sidewalk within the road right away, because that sidewalk then became the Division of Highways maintenance responsibility. So they have the kind of less is more attitude, meaning the less we have in our right of way, the less maintenance responsibilities we have. And really, the other thing I'd like to share, a prerequisite getting before the Berkeley County Planning Commission to obtain a preliminary plan approval, which for all intents and purposes is a construction drawing to move forward with the site development, is an acknowledgement, written acknowledgement from the West Virginia Division of Highways that a permit can be issued for the project. If we never got that email or that correspondence from Division of Highways, I would never be standing at this podium in front of the Planning Commission seeking an approval to move forward with the project. That's a prerequisite requirement. I'm not sure really what else I could share other than DOH makes the decisions within their right-of-way. And there's been many times that even, you know, this county engineering department has made recommendations for, let's say, not in this particular instance, but other jobs, a left turn lane, you know, center left turn lane, dedicated left turn lane into the development. And the DOH, you know, when we receive the comment, the burden's on us to run that by Division of Highways. Division of Highways responds to me in writing, saying we've considered that and will not pursue that at this time. That addresses the county engineering comment, but the burden's on us or the applicant or the developer to get answers from the people that are the decision makers, in this case, the Division of Highways. So they're not very free about allowing improvements, whether, local folks or local governmental officials feel that, improvements are warranted. You have to meet the criteria of the Division of Highways in order for those improvements to be considered. And to my knowledge, this use and the peak AM hour and peak PM hour trips don't warrant the need for any improvements to Tuscarora Pike in the eyes of Division Highways.
We had an issue here at the reserve, the main entrance. We wanted a decel lane in the front of that. We had it on our original drawing. The state made us take it off the drawings, but now allow us to put it in there because it said it does not warrant, that condition does not warrant a decel. We could put one into this office building, we would do the same thing. I think they should be there. That's our opinion. But it's not the state. The state's the ones who say you can, you can't. You just can't do what you want. They tell us what you're going to do.
And I understand that completely, but I'm just saying I want to put the liability back on the state. So if something does happen there and somebody.
It is. It is. They're the ones.
By getting their permit,
Yeah.
they're accepting that entrance onto their
Right.
roadway. They're completely, all the liability is on them because that is their right of way. And to expand on what Alan and Steve said, Doug and I have kind of pushed the boundaries with what we can request and ask projects, trying to get something as simple as a right turn lane, not even a full turn lane, a taper. They basically told us to take our ball and go home.
Okay. And
So we've pushed the envelope in knowing that how DOH wants absolutely no upgrades in their right of way unless they have requested it themselves. It's hard for us to be on board with saying, we all are in agreement that safety is important, but it's kind of difficult to make those upgrades happen when Department of Highways is accepting.
It's all under DOH's jurisdiction, and this board doesn't have any jurisdiction to put that in. Yeah.
None of us have any jurisdiction
Well, I was-
over the DOH because I deal with them all the time. And no matter what common sense dictates, as Alan said about a right-hand turn lane into a thing, if they do not want it, they are the power to be, and there's no one, this board, county commissioners, there's no one else in the state of West Virginia can override them. I've just, from personal experience, I'm doing the bulk of the project up at the bypass in Berkeley Springs, and we went to them and showed them a more economical way because we're taxpayers in West Virginia. And the DOH from Charleston looked at me, the head man, and he just said, you build whatever's on that plan, that's it. And so it cost them 2/3 more than what it, or cost all of us 2/3 more than what it should have cost.
And I will add that, DOH isn't issuing these permits right and left every day. There's a very stringent and detailed review process, and it literally takes months to go through this, to get their approval, because and it's not only one person. There's a group that, looks at different aspects of the design. And it's not something that's, it's taken very seriously with Division Highways.
Right. When I say there's like specific.
Like, for instance, in this example, like they've mentioned about putting that row of pine trees, we could make that a condition of the thing to have that row of pine trees as, mentioned in the plan.
Yeah, that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that.
Correct.
okay.
And it couldn't be something that legally should.
Okay. Have any other further?
That's the only
Questions
questions I
from-
had. And again, the facade thing can be talked about with the architectural part of it at a later. But
That is something.
that can be put in there. If it could possibly be lowered, maybe 5 or 8 feet, if it's possible. I don't
I
know,
don't think we can get that far down.
because of the heights of the elevations of the back of the properties of the first few houses versus where you're gonna dig low down the elevation there? I know there's
Well, that's the reason
about
why-
12 feet, right?
Always raises agreed, they can do 5 feet.
Right, okay, cool.
You know, in the back of those houses too, in that letter that I gave to you, I did offer
Yes.
to put an 8-foot high vinyl fence. With that elevation difference in an 8-foot fence,
You're
I don't
not
think
gonna
you're
see it,
that.
correct.
But one thing I wanted to mention to you on your safety issues, and we're trying to be a good neighbor here. One thing we would do extra, if the state will allow this, maybe since we're close to the intersection, they will allow that to have a decel lane. So it gets those cars off the lane going in here faster, keeps the travel lane going moving faster. Yeah, it's totally up to DOH.
Yeah.
They're not that expensive, so we would be willing to put one of those in there if they will allow it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else questions up here? Comments?
Not for Steve.
Thank you.
I do have a few comments I would like to review. More or less just what has been said tonight was also said on April 3rd public hearing. At the April 3rd hearing, it was suggested to the board that we do not allow our personal opinions to become part of the decision-making process to either approve or deny the special request for the exception. I think, you know, food for thought. All 5 of us board members, 4 present this evening, should keep that in mind. I think that if we use the tools that we have been given from 1975, almost 50 years now, and read the document from page 1 to the last page, there are sections that can that address just what we're trying to vote on this evening. I know also that at the April 3rd public hearing, it was more or less presented to us as a board. If the Bowles Rice project is not approved, there would be additional homes built on the west side or in the west side residential areas backed up against more houses. I find that to be that's a novel idea, to add more residential lots to a residential community. That's a great idea. You know, I don't know why there would be any objection to that at all. And the proof of the pudding is the 45 initial home sites went through the planning commission, went to the county commissioners, didn't even come to this board. It was approved. So if you want to add more homes, I think that would be the steps that would be taken. It wouldn't come to us for approval. So having said that, you know, we should keep that in mind as board members. You know, no matter where our existing family homes are located, no matter what impact this project or a future project might have on us as individuals, that should not be part of our decision-making process. What should be part of our process to approve or disapprove or deny should be the codes itself in our zoning ordinance. It was also mentioned on April the 3rd about section 610. Oh, I agree. 503.2 allows for us to permit this type of business to be built in that lot. It approves it. I think if we read on and use the total document for food for thought, I think that it gives us something to consider other than 503.2. Also mentioned in that meeting was section 610. The first sentence in section 610 is the board may permit limited professional and business offices. Here again, just like safety, it's a definition of what you consider to be limited. Maybe the limit's been met. Maybe it hasn't. It's a consideration to take before you vote as far as us board members go. Here again, section 103.2. The whole ordinance is to help guide future growth and development in accordance with a plan of land use, population density that provides for a beneficial and convenient relationship among the residential, commercial, et cetera, within the county. I would think that that would incorporate also within the Tuscarora zoning ordinance boundaries. I don't know if there's a benefit to having a lawyer's office that on one side of it is an existing residential area, and on the other side of it, I find this evening, is stormwater management, and the next thing over is residential. Now, to me, common sense would tell me that's not part of future development, because Mr. Henry will tell you, I want to build 45 homes and have already started the construction to do that. So here again, I'm not sure where this food for thought should take us. 103.4 states to maintain and protect residential, commercial, industrial from encroachment of incompatible uses. Here again, we have houses, we have stormwater management, we have more houses being built. Is that compatible with residential uses? Section 260. Title of it is special exception. And it says a use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction throughout the district, but which, if controlled as to number, area, location, or relation to the neighborhood, would be compatible. Here again, it states, if controlled by number, area, location, or relation to the neighborhood. Is this project compatible with all of that? Section 703.1 is just to reemphasizes the fact that it has to be compatible with existing or planned future development relative to existing and planned future development patterns. A pattern has already been established. You have residential, you have Mr. Henry's residential, they did under construction, and now we're going to add a commercial building. Section 703.32 addresses the fact of location and size of the use. Will it be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district? Here again, is it in harmony with anything on either side of it? I'm not going to go on about this, but there's numerous other sections. But those are 7 sections and statements directly from our zoning ordinance. Our zoning ordinance, the main goal of that was to promote and expand the residential community of the Tuscarora area. And you might say to me, well, how do you know that, Dan? You weren't part of anything in 1974 or 75 when it was adopted through the court system and became law and became a zone district. How do you know such a thing? Common sense tells me if residential sites are the easiest site to be approved, that is the ordinance backbone. That is why the ordinance was written, that's why it was developed, and that's why residential properties are the easiest thing to get approved. If not, why wouldn't those group of guys and girls back in 1975 say, You can have office buildings, you can have dentist offices, you can have anything you want and go right to Laura's department and have it approved. You don't come to the BZA. That's not what they did. They made an exception in saying if you want certain types of uses and certain types of buildings, you have to get approval and additional steps to build that project. I think that we owe the group in 1975 a big thank you. We have all, I have, and I'm sure all of us board members, it's mandated through the zoning document that we have to live within the zoned community, and we all do. We bought our houses because it was a residential area. We didn't buy it because of the opportunity that, oh, I can go buy my house, and 2 years from now, I get to have a neighbor that's a dentist office. I didn't buy my house for that. I bought it because it was in a residential area. I think that we can, use all of this information. Legal can step in and say, Dan, you're full of crap. You've misread everything. That's not what the ordinance means. And I'll take that because he is of a legal nature and probably understands the document a whole lot better than I do. But from a common sense area in my brain, I think that the ordinance states in many different sections opportunities for us to be able to pay it forward for future generations to have the same benefit of living in our community.
If I could speak on how we got to where we're at now, I think would explain some of this, what we're talking about here, Dan. Back on past public hearing we had, our first ones we had on this, we had a high-density subdivision plan for that. And absolutely no one wanted that subdivision in there. Again, I listened to that. And again, we always try to be good neighbors. Even though people hate what we do, we're trying to make it as best we can for the neighbors around that. No one wanted that 100-plus subdivision in that area. So I took a look at this, and I knew that it was very sensitive about the people on Showers Lane. That's why that big strip is in the backside of that. I'm trying to figure out what can we do with that land. We have to do something with it. I can't leave it in the raw land.
Absolutely,
It's gotta
I
be
agree
into
with
something
that.
there. So that's why we came back with only 45 lots in this subdivision until we figure out what we can do with this back of this, still trying to be good neighbors to the only one we're big time affecting are the ones on Shower Lanes on the west side there. So that's why that whole buffer was put in there, to put landscaping, and was to protect all these people in here. Again, that's costing us $60,000, $70,000 for all that, trying to be a good neighbor. The county's not telling us to do that. We're doing it to be a good neighbor to everybody in there. And what we're proposing now was to leave that strip there. There would only be one more home in there. And then we'd have the commercial building along Tuscarora Pike, which we thought that is a minimal impact. That's a whole lot less than having homes backing up all them Shires Lane, which means you got 2 to 3 to 4 people in your backyard times 13. That's way more people than what this law firm would have. And they're inside the building. They're not in their backyards. So that's where this all came from. It was from past meetings we had, listening what the community wanted, and we're trying to make it fit as best as we can so that impact is as minimal as possible. That's where all that came from. So if I wanted to be a greedy developer, I'd have done filled full houses. Because you're right, I don't have to come to the BZA for that. That's not what I was trying to do. I'm trying to be good neighbors here. I know a lot of the people's in the community. I don't want people mad at us. If we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And they may not care about being a good neighbor. They care about the dollar signs, and they're going to do whatever they want to do. We're not doing that. We think this minimal impact is way better having this commercial building out here, leaving that big grass strip, 10.6 acres, into one home and not 13 homes. That's where all this came from. So it was just from us listening to what the public hearings had said to us in the past.
And Mr. Henry, I can understand your position in that, and I think you are a very respected developer in this area. That anything that I found in our document is not pointed at you in a negative sense. What I am trying to explain to us board members and to anyone in the building is there are options other than a commercial site in a residential area. That's the only food for thought I was throwing out there. I thank you there.
Anybody else on the board? Any comments, discussion?
I had a couple thoughts that in researching this, thinking about this from the previous meeting and reading through the previous meeting minutes. Couple things that from the public comments that stuck out to me. One, we've kind of already addressed is the traffic issues. And like we said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's kind of DOH has ultimate jurisdiction over that, and that essentially has basically no bearing on granting or denying this special exception. The other thing that was brought up with the public comments several times was the blasting. Again, that's on the project that's already going on, and again, that doesn't seem to have any bearing on granting or denying this particular exception. The other thing that was mentioned was somebody commented about, if we grant this approval, it would set a precedent for future projects. Unfortunately, that precedent's already been set, because if you come off of 81 and head west, you pass a financial office and a chiropractor before you hit, and BC&T Bank before you hit any residences. And then you go further down, and there's 3 more commercial properties at the entrance to Chateau Gay, all within the Tuscarora zoning. And there are special exceptions for several of those, specifically from the Tuscarora zoning. So the precedent's already been set to have commercial properties directly off of Tuscarora Pike. So I think that was all the specific comments I had to address some of the public comments that were from the last meeting.
The other thing that I would like to add to this, and I don't know if this was necessarily the correct thing for me to do, but it's just the way I am because I've grown up here before 81 was built. So I went and all the people that spoke, or the bulk of the people that spoke the other night at the meeting, I took the 2 options to them. And I've really, weighed heavy on this, thinking what is best for our community. If it was a different law firm versus Bowles and Rice, then I would be possibly against it, only because their clientele is a different class of people than what we have in that area. But everyone that I spoke to and everyone that I showed the differences to voted, or they don't vote on it, but their comments were, to me, were do what is the least evasive. So, and I'm not against the Bowles and Rice thing if it's lowered some, and then having one house, there's no access to that 10, 11 acres from the Bowles and Rice thing. It's landlocked from that point on. Nothing can be put there. And then whoever the person is purchasing the other 10 or 11 acres, whatever it is, they're looking at keeping it as one wide open property for whatever reason. You all had mentioned about no horses or cattle. To me, if somebody had a couple of horses, I'd take them to Napple. But again, that even makes it better for me, because then I see that you've got a lot larger area staying as a green space. So,
Yeah, well, we're not gonna allow animals in that area there. That
Right,
just does not
so-
gonna fit in.
Yeah, and I
It's
don't
gonna be a
believe,
hayfield or someone's yard,
I
whatever.
don't believe livestock are permitted in the zone, if I'm
right,
correct.
and it's I know we all have different emotional issues about lots of things that entertain this. But we have to also look at what is realistic with what can be done and what is accepted and what is the quality of the special exception. And in my personal opinion, the quality of this special exception is at the top of the chart. It's not something, that I can say that I'm really opposed to that. So that's just my opinion.
Just to follow up on John's comments about there's been a standard that's already been established through some commercial businesses that are up and running. I think that, and that's the truth. I think too, we were offered in this zoning document a safety net in certain sections that comment to the fact controlled number of and those sorts of things. So if we made mistakes 10 years ago, and I'm not saying I wasn't part of this 10 years ago, but if mistakes were made, are we saying now because they were made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or 50 years ago, do we continue to make those same mistakes? Is that important to the zoned district? Is that something that we should be, number one priority? They're already there, up and running. Let's just have more of them. Food for thought, fellas. Yeah.
I do feel, I mean, I was involved in 10, 15 years ago of the boards of zoning appeals and a couple things that passed during that time. Again, I think we're done tastefully, done within the ordinance and I've read through it from the front to the back so many times, over and over again. And I think in this particular instance, I'm not going to say it's going to be somebody come down the road and want to put a Wawa, because that's not in the same thing. A Wawa is an important thing, but it's, again, not important for that because it's on the other side of the interstate. So that's where I'm at on this.
Any other
Not for me.
comments, discussion?
Is there any other discussions or things should be?
I mean, if not, are you guys ready to make a motion on it?
I'm prepared to make, yes, to vote on it.
I need, somebody go make the
Yeah, I
motion.
apologize. Yeah, I make a motion that we go ahead and vote on whether the special exception passes or fails.
Well,
Worded.
yeah,
Basically,
you have
I would say
to,
pass, whether you vote in favor.
I would,
Okay,
Because if you word it either way.
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception with the conditions of planting the trees as they have stated.
in the fence if they so feel.
And, yeah.
I second the motion.
have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 2-1.
Did everybody not vote?
Well,
Corey doesn't, yeah.
That's fine.
I don't, because I'm the,
Well, that's not really, don't necessarily. I think
If
that's a
there were a tie,
misunderstanding
yeah.
that some people have with residential.
If
So,
it were a tie, you would definitely have to vote, but if it's not a tie.
okay. No,
You can
that,
redo it if you want.
I mean, that was my understanding that I didn't unless there was a tie.
Yeah, because Jeff's not here.
Since they don't have all five.
Right.
Right.
One way or the other.
Okay. So pull it up again.
I would just do it again, just say all in favor.
Okay. So again on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda would be staff updates and discussion.
Think. Why?
I'm not
You're
sure.
right.
I believe so.
Do you have a date?
Because I was trying to miss all those major holidays and stuff, so I think we could out December.
And there's nothing, I guess, on
I don't have
the
anything.
horizon.
No.
May 31st is what I had in my records.
May 31st?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, that's 2023, sorry. That's looking backward.
It's a holiday, isn't it?
Sorry, July 24th.
It is July
Yeah,
24th?
July
Yeah.
24th.
I knew all of them were 24th.
Yeah, and then October 23rd would be the,
Yep, yep.
Okay, last thing, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.